Usually, when we talk about a massive international competition, there is just this, like, certain expectation of spectacle, you know?
Absolutely.
You picture the stadium lights, the pyrotechnics, the absolute roar of a crowd in the tens of thousands.
Right.
The entire production is just loud, it is incredibly bright, and it's meticulously designed to, like, grab you by the collar and refuse to let go.
Yeah, I mean, it is an environment built entirely on sensory overload.
Exactly.
The fundamental goal of these global broadcasts is to deliver the biggest, the boldest, and just the most visually arresting moments possible.
Just to keep you from changing the channel, right?
Right, exactly. You can't look away.
But, you know, sometimes you look at the actual human beings stepping onto that massive stage and you see this really jarring disconnect.
Oh, for sure.
Because every once in a while, right in the middle of all that blinding glitter and choreographed chaos, an artist walks out with something so fragile.
So quiet.
Yeah, so incredibly quiet and personal that it almost feels like they wandered into the wrong building by mistake.
It really does.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We have a genuinely fascinating stack of sources in front of us today for you.
We really do.
We're looking at biographical records, music festival voting data, some translated lyrics, and the latest and, frankly, just brutal betting odds for the upcoming Eurovision Song Contest.
The one happening in Vienna, right?
Yeah, Vienna in May 2026.
Yeah, we are putting a microscope to a very specific collision of worlds today.
We are.
We want to analyze for you what happens when deeply intimate, culturally specific art is just thrown directly into the ruthless, statistically driven machinery of a global mega event.
Right. And our mission for you today is to unpack the story of Ilis, who is this young Albanian singer who absolutely swept his nation's premier music festival.
Swept it completely.
With a quiet, tear-jerking ballad about a mother's empty nest.
But which is just wild when you think about it.
It is. And we are going to explore how this deeply personal song, a piece of music that literally originated from a dream, by the way,
Right.
is currently trying to survive against, like, an army of pyrotechnics, massive pop anthems, and acts with names like, Look Mum No Computer.
Which is a real name, yes?
It is. Let's unpack this, because before we can even begin to understand the incredibly steep mountain the song has to climb in Vienna, we first have to understand this artist's absolute dominance on his home turf.
Yeah, that context is so crucial.
Definitely.
Because if you were to, only look at the international betting odds today, you might just assume this artist is a perpetual underdog.
Right, like he just barely scraped by.
Exactly. But in Albania, Alice is currently anything but an underdog.
No.
I mean, he is a homegrown powerhouse who just pulled off something statistically remarkable.
So let's set the scene for who this person actually is for you. Alice, his full name is Ilis Kallaçi, is only 22 or 23 years old.
Right, super young.
He's from Shkodër, which is a city in northwestern Albania. And his rise has been incredibly rapid.
Oh, lightning fast.
Yeah, he first grabs the national spotlight by winning Season 5 of X Factor Albania back in April of 2024.
Right.
Then he pivots and enters Albania's massive historic music competition, Festivali I Këngës.
The big one.
The huge one. He places third in their 63rd edition later that same year.
Which is already impressive.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
But it's the 64th edition just this past December in 2025 where he completely takes over.
Right. And, to really appreciate that victory, you have to understand the physical and the mental demands of Festivali I Këngës.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, this is not like a quick weekend reality TV shoot.
Right.
It's a grueling, highly prestigious 4-night event held at the Palace of Congresses in Tirana.
4 nights.
Yes. It started with 28 artists competing, fighting their way through semifinals, surviving a nostalgia covers night.
Oh, wow.
And all of it leading up to a massive 23-artist grand final.
That's huge.
For a vocalist, that is an absolute marathon.
And the voting breakdown for that final is where the math it stops making sense to me.
It really is wild.
So the scoring is split 50-50, right? Between a professional jury and a public televote.
Correct.
Ellis didn't just edge out a win with his song Nan. He completely swept the board.
Unanimous.
He took first place with the notoriously picky jury, scoring 68 points.
Bro.
Then he took first place with the everyday televoters, scoring 84 points.
Incredible.
That is a total of 152 points.
And the runner-up.
The runner-up, Enis Naziri, was just left in the dust at 102 points.
I mean, a 50-point lead in a fragmented field of 23 finalists, it's not just a win.
No.
It is a cultural mandate.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It represents a definitive, unanimous statement from both the musical establishment and the general public.
Wait, hold on. Let me push back on how rare that actually is, just so you really grasped it.
Yeah, okay.
Because I look at this like a sports rookie stepping into the major leagues for their first full season.
Right.
And immediately winning both the MVP award from the grizzled, cynical sports writers and the fan favorite vote from the bleachers.
That's a great analogy.
Right. Because usually the technical critics want complexity, they want precision, flawless execution.
Absolutely.
But the public usually wants raw emotion, an undeniable hook, and relatability.
Yeah, they want a feeling.
Exactly. So how does a guy in his early 20s manage to satisfy two completely opposing sets of criteria?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the answer is hidden in his educational background.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he isn't just some pop vocalist manufactured by a reality TV machine.
Even though he won X Factor.
Right, exactly. Yes, he won X Factor, but his foundation is deeply classical.
Okay.
He actually holds a piano diploma from the Prinčíkova Art School, and he's a student of music pedagogy.
Ah.
So when he performs live at a marathon event like Festivali Këngës, the professional juries are hearing a masterclass.
They're hearing the technique.
Yes. They're hearing breath control, dynamic range, and deliberate musical phrasing.
Yeah.
He possesses the technical architecture to demand a critic's respect.
But wait, classical training can so often be a trap for pop performers, right?
Oh, totally.
Like it can make them sound stiff or overly academic, which completely alienates the everyday viewer who just wants to feel something.
That is exactly where his youth and the specific nature of his vocal delivery come into play.
How so?
His classical training acts almost like an X-ray machine for the song.
An X-ray machine?
Yeah, like instead of adding stiff academic flourishes, his technique actually strips away all the pop artifice.
Oh, wow.
It provides a completely transparent, stable structure that allows his raw, authentic emotional breakdown to shine through.
Oh, I get it.
Without his voice ever actually failing him. So the jury rewards the invisible technique and the public rewards the visible emotion.
Okay, the X-ray machine analogy makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
He has the structural integrity to deliver a devastating performance cleanly.
Exactly.
But, I mean, structural integrity and a good voice only get you so far.
True.
To win a public vote by a 50-point margin, the song itself has to pull a massive psychological trigger.
It has to hit hard.
It has to mean something profound to the people who are actually picking up their phones to vote.
Right.
So let's look at the actual song that caused this sweep, Nen, which translates to mother.
Yeah, let's dissect the anatomy of the song.
Okay.
It's a ballad sung entirely in Geg Albanian.
Which is a specific regional dialect, right?
Yes, spoken in northern Albania where Alice is from.
Okay.
He actually co-wrote the track with Dasar Gjigini. But the origin of the song is what truly sets it apart from typical festival fare.
This detail stood out to me immediately in the source material.
Crazy.
Ellis claims the song literally came to him in a dream.
Yeah.
He said he was asleep and heard this distant, disembodied voice that simply said, "Goodbye, mother."
Wow.
And that was the seed for the entire project.
I mean, it's an inherently haunting premise.
Really
Which is fitting, because the final product is fundamentally a haunting piece of music.
Yeah.
When you look closely at the translated lyrics, the psychological trigger you mentioned before becomes very obvious.
Right.
This is an emotional exploration of the empty nest syndrome, but it's viewed entirely through the lens of emigration.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
When I first started reading through these lyrics for you, I realized this isn't your standard pop ballad about a romantic breakup.
No, not at all.
And it isn't a standard coming-of-age anthem either.
Right.
It reads like an auditory ghost story.
I like that.
The imagery is just so vivid. The mother is standing in the doorway, and she says, 2 weeks, 2 years, this summer too is gone.
Oof.
She describes the house that used to be a warm mess with books on the floor, but notes that suddenly it has turned cold and into a desert.
Just consider the psychological state of the mother character in these lyrics.
Right.
She's experiencing literal phantom echoes of her children.
Oh, absolutely.
The lyrics say, "We still see your shadows running down the hall. We still hear your voices in the yard."
Yeah.
She is physically making beds on sofas and the floor for children who aren't there anymore.
Wow.
She's calling names out loud into an empty room.
It's a reverse coming-of-age tale.
Exactly.
Think about how we usually frame these stories in pop culture.
How do you mean?
Well, the camera follows the brave youth, right? Packing their bags, looking thoughtfully out the train window,
Right.
heading off to the big city to conquer the world.
Yeah, we romanticize the leaving.
Exactly. We romanticize it.
Yeah.
But this song takes the camera, turns it around, and literally bolts it to the front porch.
Oh, yeah.
It focuses entirely on the collateral damage of growing up. It forces you to sit in the haunting, echoing silence left behind for the mother who has to maintain the home.
And if we pull back and look at the macro context, the song transforms from a sad domestic story into a razor-sharp piece of social commentary.
Right, because of the regional reality.
Yes. In the Balkans, and very specifically in Albania, youth emigration is not just a trope.
No.
It is a deeply ingrained, inescapable reality. Young people are leaving their hometowns in massive numbers for economic reasons.
To find work.
Exactly. They're migrating to Western Europe or beyond to seek out what the song actually calls a better life.
So, when the Albanian public is watching this broadcast in December, they aren't just voting for a nice melody.
No, not at all.
They are validating their own lived reality.
Yes.
Every single family watching that festival either has a child who had to leave or they are the child who had to leave a parent behind.
It is a collective national grief.
Wow.
Ellis articulated a shared wound beautifully, and he had the technical skill to elevate it without cheapening it.
Right.
That is the psychological trigger. That is how you secure a 50-point lead.
It makes total sense now.
In that specific cultural context, the song was completely undeniable.
Okay, so None is an absolute triumph in Tirana. It resonates perfectly with its intended audience.
Flawlessly.
But the prize for winning Festivali Këngës is a ticket to represent the country at the Eurovision Song Contest.
Yes, the big stage.
And this is where we hit the wall.
Yeah.
Because you have this quiet, intimate domestic grief on one side and the massive, glittery, hyper-competitive circus waiting for him on the other.
A total clash.
Can a song this fragile actually survive the arena in Vienna?
Well, we have to look at the mechanics of Eurovision to answer that.
Right.
Because it's a completely different beast than a domestic festival. You're dealing with a continent-wide television broadcast with tens of millions of viewers.
Tens of millions.
And the vast majority of those viewers will not speak a single word of gay Albanian.
Of course not.
Plus, they're tuning in specifically for high-energy spectacle.
So let's set the scene for what Alice is walking into in May 2026.
Okay.
We are at the Wiener Stadthalle in Vienna, Austria.
Yep.
Alice is slated to perform in semifinal 2. Specifically, he has drawn the 13th slot in the running order.
Right.
And the tonal whiplash of the sequence is almost comical.
Oh, the running order alone highlights the chaotic nature of Eurovision programming.
It's insane.
The producers try to create dynamic television, but it often leaves certain artists in really precarious positions.
Look at the lineup for you right here. Right before Alice comes on stage, the United Kingdom is performing.
Oh, boy.
And the UK act is literally named Look Mum, No Computer.
Yep.
And their song is called Eins, Zwei, Drei.
Exactly.
So you have an arena full of people who are going to be hit with what we can safely assume is a high-voltage, frenetic electronic track.
Flashing lights, heavy bass.
Right. And then the lights come down, and Alice has to walk out to an exhausted crowd and deliver his delicate, heartbroken ballad about a mother making empty beds.
Talk about a mood shift.
And it doesn't end there. As soon as he hits his final note, the stage immediately resets for Malta's entry.
Oh, right.
An artist named Aiden with a song called Bella, which is likely an upbeat pop track.
So he is sandwiched completely between two totally different emotional frequencies. The psychological shift required from the viewer in that 3-minute window is immense.
But wait, isn't a palate cleanser a good thing?
How so?
Like, if I'm eating a really heavy, chaotic meal, a quiet moment can be brilliant.
True.
Doesn't that stark contrast force the arena to hold its breath and just, like, pay attention to him?
Well, in a theater, yes.
Okay.
But Eurovision operates on an attention economy.
Ah.
Viewers at home are having parties, they're talking over the music, looking at their phones.
Right, they're distracted.
Exactly. So when the energy dips drastically, the risk isn't that they hold their breath.
What is it?
The risk is that they tune out entirely to go to the kitchen to grab a snack.
So what does this all mean? Because the betting markets seem to completely agree with you.
Oh, they do.
When we dive into the cold, hard statistics from the April 2026 odds, the picture is brutally unforgiving for Alice.
Let's break down exactly what the bookmakers are predicting.
Okay, in his own semifinal 2, the odds makers have Denmark's Søren Torpegaard Lund leading the pack with a 35% chance of winning the night.
Okay.
Alice, despite his historic domestic sweep, is currently ranked 10th in that semifinal, with just a measly 2% chance of winning it.
Right. And if you're looking at these odds, you really need to understand that finishing 10th in a semifinal is the absolute razor's edge of survival.
Because only 10 go through.
Exactly. Only the top 10 advance to the Saturday Grand Final.
Wow.
So the people who calculate these probabilities for a living are essentially saying it is a coin toss whether this song even makes to the weekend.
And if we zoom out to the overall grand final predictions, the math gets even colder.
It does.
Finland's duo, Linda Lampenius and Pete Parkkonen, are dominating the overall odds with a 31% chance of winning the whole thing.
Massive favorites.
Yeah, Frances Monroe is sitting right behind them. But it's really interesting to see how the odds makers expect the voting to split between the juries and the televote.
Oh, the split is always telling.
Right. Australia's Delta Goodrem is heavily favored to win the jury vote at 28%.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Israel's Noam Betten is leading the televote predictions at 26%.
And those specific splits tell us exactly why Alice is struggling mathematically.
Break that down.
Think about why a jury favors an act like Delta Goodrem.
Why?
She likely presents a technically flawless, predictable pop structure with major vocal acrobatics.
Right, she checks the boxes.
Exactly. It hits all their technical benchmarks. Conversely, think about why the televote favors an act like Noam Betten.
The visual spectacle.
Yes. That entry likely relies on instant visual appeal, an infectious rhythm, and a visceral hook that requires zero translation.
And Alice is just trapped in the mathematical dead zone between those two extremes.
He really is.
He doesn't have the big, bombastic pop vocal climax that traditional Eurovision juries look for.
No.
And he definitely doesn't have the visual pyrotechnics or the dance beat for the televote.
Right.
So where does he sit in the overall grand final odds?
Way down the board.
He is 25th overall. The betting markets give him a less than 1% chance of actually winning the Eurovision Song Contest.
Which completely synthesizes the inherent challenge we've been discussing.
Yeah.
The emotion of the Albanian lyrics hit home in Tirana because the audience instinctively understood both the language and the specific cultural reality of mass emigration.
They felt it.
Exactly. But in Vienna, Alice has exactly a 3-minute window to cross a massive language barrier.
He literally has 3 minutes to make someone sitting in their living room in Iceland or Spain or the UK deeply feel the pain of a mother standing on a porch in Shkadir.
It's a tall order. The odds are simply a reflection of how incredibly difficult it is to translate quiet, culturally specific sorrow to a continent-wide audience.
Right.
A quiet ballad that relies heavily on the poetry of his native lyrics is always going to face a severe uphill battle when 90% of the audience doesn't speak the language.
It feels almost unfair, you know?
It really does.
You take something so pure, so universally human, because look, even if you don't live in the Balkans, you know what it means to miss someone.
Absolutely.
You know what it feels like to leave home for the first time, to see your childhood bedroom boxed up?
Yeah, everyone relates to that.
We have all experienced the bittersweet nature of leaving or the heavy, sinking fear of being left behind.
Right.
Alice managed to capture that universal human experience, wrapped it up in this beautiful, highly specific cultural package, and he is bravely offering it up to the world on one of the loudest stages imaginable.
It is an incredibly grave artistic choice.
It really is.
He's not compromising the integrity of the song to make it more digestible or, Eurovision friendly.
No.
He is bringing his unvarnished truth to the stage, exactly as it was written in that dream.
And that matters, regardless of what a betting algorithm says in April.
Fully agree.
It matters that this song exists and that it's going to have its 3 minutes under the lights in Vienna, even if it is completely surrounded by synthesizers and dance breaks.
It does. But, it does raise a much larger, somewhat uncomfortable question for you to mull over as we wrap up today's deep dive.
Okay, what's that?
If Nan fails to qualify in Vienna, if it falls victim to that 2% probability and gets eliminated in the semifinal, we shouldn't just ask if the song failed.
Right.
We should ask what this says about the future of art in a globalized world.
Where are you going with this?
Just think about the incentives.
Okay.
If massive global algorithms and mega contests continuously demand instant, borderless English language spectacle to achieve success, what happens to the artists back home?
Oh, wow.
Are we slowly, mathematically incentivizing the extinction of deeply regional, culturally specific art altogether? If you know you have to compete with pyrotechnics just to be heard, do you eventually stop writing the quiet local ballads entirely?
Wow. That is a chilling thought.
It really is.
If the only way to survive the arena is to become just as loud as everyone else, we might lose the auditory ghost stories completely.
We just might.
Well, we will just have to see if the audience in Vienna is willing to quiet down for 3 minutes and actually listen to the silence.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep an ear out for Nin this May, and we will catch you next time.